I dated a convicted murderer, ex-drug dealer who was 20 years older than me. I had a blast with him. He was cheating on me throughout our relationship without me knowing. I found out by his ex trying to kill me. It was kind of a heat of passion, not premeditated, so still pretty intense. And I stayed with him after that. And I kept going back and forth and I was like, but I want to be the kind of person who stays. I want to be the kind of person who stays. Would you walk away from your partner if they had cancer? Well, this is just a disease. It's the same thing. It's a disease of the mind. It's a disease of the heart. I'm not going to abandon this guy just because of this internal pain, which is true. I mean, I to this day don't hate him. And if you're with somebody who is abusing you, you probably don't hate them. You might have moments of hating them, but you're with them because there are good moments too. And there are moments where they're charming or loving or over the top caring, or there are these things about them that you just really do love. And it feels like you can see it in there. You can see how great they are. You can see how great they could be. And yet I felt like if I just love you hard enough, that will come out all the time. If I just love you in the right way, if I can just like contort myself enough into what you need, that will come out all the time. I really believed that would work. And then we reported his ex to the police. He went back without telling me and I don't know how it works, but removed the report somehow, like said, never mind that. His ex, I mean, he was cheating on him, so who knows? The terms are really blurry. But, and I heard that and I was like, no, this is too much. This is too much. And then I did the same battle again of I don't know if I should leave or not. And my best friend, this is going to make me cry. My best friend sent me an email and said, hey, you did not ask for this, but I can't consider myself your friend if I don't say it. Who convinced you that this is the kind of love that you deserve? We're spending all this time figuring out what he could be and what he deserves, but what about you? Who convinced you that this is the kind of love you deserve? It's not. And that email, like, I read that and I went, oh. And that's what helped me get out. And I just feel like there are so many people out there who don't have somebody sending them that email, you know? Which leads me to say why Ruth is here is because Ruth's been through this very intimately and can express what abuse doesn't always look like and what it does look like. And that's my question. When somebody's like, well, what does it look like? How did you know?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think what comes up most often for me in my work, both with people in abusive relationships and me personally, my own experience was that I spent so many years thinking abuse was broken bones and police lights and hospitalizations. And it's really not that. Abuse is so many things outside of what people think of as kind of the violent abuse that's portrayed a lot in like movies and TV and media. Abuse can look like being put down in front of your friends and family members and having jokes made at your expense. It can look like your partner telling you over and over that you're bad at something you know you're really good at. And one of the things that's prevalent in almost every kind of abuse and every type of abusive relationship is control. And control can manifest in a lot of ways that frankly seem a little ridiculous to the outside. And I'd like to tell a little bit of a story to illustrate that, if I may.
Yes, please.
My ex regulated my toilet paper usage, which sounds a little weird, but I want to clarify he wasn't like standing outside the bathroom and handing me squares, but it was something that he tracked how much of it we bought. And if we went through it faster than he thought we should, it was my fault. And it went so far that he actually had me demonstrate how I was using it in front of him on several occasions so that he could like critique my technique.
Yeesh. Yeah. Ugh, so how do you know that's a red flag and not, well, wow, yeah, I'm really bad with toilet paper. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. I really didn't because the way that it starts is so subtle. I always say when I explain what happened here is that if I'd come back from the bathroom on our first date together and he'd interrogated me about how much toilet paper I'd just used, I probably wouldn't have gone out with him again. But the way that he started it was just making little jokes that he always seemed to go through more when I was visiting. And then slowly, those jokes, which were consistently like 1 or 2 a month, became kind of complaints, and then it turns into criticism, and then suddenly it's evidence of this problem that I'm causing, and he's the only one who's working to solve it. And that's really how abuse has these rules, these fences that come up around your life that you don't even realize are being built until you are trapped. And I did not recognize that sort of toilet paper control as abuse until long after I was out of the relationship. It took me over a year of being away from him and recovering until I started to see some of those things as abuse, not just as me being really inefficient with toilet paper or even just him having strong preferences about how we used household things. There's a big difference between preference and abuse.
When you're saying that, I'm hearing a person who desperately wants connection and is finding evidence that he's not getting it. And the only way he knows to get it back is through control. And I view abusers as, I'm going to take the line that you said, and I wanted to say that it's from you. And then I added this on. So I'm like trying to attribute it correctly. Because I have it written over here. An abuser is not a victim of their circumstance. They're also not a monster. And my addition to that was they're a human using control as a way to get connection because they've never experienced connection any other way. Even if you've tried to give it to them, I think that's the gap that happens is you go, oh no, well then let me try harder, let me communicate better, and maybe they'll feel connected. But people can only receive love to the level that they have accepted it from themselves. So if there isn't the self-acceptance, then they will look at you and try to control you into loving them right. And because you're the thing standing in front of them while they feel bad, they go, well, if I could just fix you. And they fix and they fix and they control and they control and they fence and they fence. And ironically, on the other side of that, we're doing the same thing. Like being abused, you're doing the same thing of, well, okay, so maybe if I just change this and change this and change this, then you will be happy. Maybe if I can just change me enough, I can make you happy, which is an attempt to control their mood and control how they respond. That doesn't work either.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
That was really well said. It's control from both sides because I was trying to control him into not abusing me anymore, and he was trying to control me into fulfilling all of the needs that he thought I should be meeting, even though I
Yeah.
couldn't because no human can, as you said, get that kind of love and connection when they're not able to receive it from themselves that way.
Yeah. The way that you said that, the needs that I should be meeting is the most frequent phrase I hear from really good-hearted abusers. Like, when I have a couple working with me and this big-hearted person is saying, but she's just not meeting my needs. He's just not meeting my needs. And they use it especially around sex. Well, but you're just not meeting my need. You need to. They feel like you're not meeting my need. That's why it hurts. They say sex is a need and they are right. They are wrong in their definition of sex. When I say, well, sex is not really a need, it's actually a whole amalgamation of a bunch of needs. But most of us were trained that sex is some kind of penetrative act with an orgasm. That's sex. That's this one little spot. But if that was just a need, you could do that on your own. And yet they're saying you need to fulfill this needs, which means that's not a need for someone else to meet for you, to do for you. It's a thing that you co-create. And there's a really cool book called Pleasure by Alexander Lowen, who has some hit or miss ideas, but was recommended to me by Matthias Barker. And when talking about pleasure, we have this reductive dot saying that thing is the need. And it's not. What's the need of it is intimacy, connection, playfulness, and that this pleasure and this feeling of being chosen. This feeling of being chosen is what the actual need is. And the hardcore evidence, like, that's definitely me being chosen to a lot of people is the penetrative act that has an orgasm. But what it feels chosen actually is so much more expansive and bigger than that. It's the playful discovery of each other's bodies. It's the random kiss in the day. It's the soft touches, rolling around and cuddling. And it's so expansive and playful. And the goal is co-creating this beautiful thing together. When that doesn't happen, what somebody who uses the sentence sex is a need tends to think is, well, you need to want to give me sex. And the person who receives that is thinking, God, I want to so badly. I want to so bad. And I just don't. And that's because we've reduced it. It is a need. It's just an amalgamation of all these needs. You need connection, you need vulnerability, you need playfulness, you need pleasure, you need to be chosen. All of those things are represented in this thing. One of my favorite stories, my friend was reading, he's a man, he was reading the book, Crown of Thorns, whatever, that smut book. And there's a scene in that smut book that he was talking to us about. And he's like, this changed my entire view on sex because Rosand, they rev up, they do all this wonderful stuff that's so lovely. And she's begging for the penetrative act to happen. And he goes, hold on. And he draws a bath for her. And he does this lovely stuff. And then he leaves. And it was a sudden mental break for him to go, oh, I've been reducing what sex is. And women, some men, but women in general, have a much more expansive understanding of pleasure. And men are getting the short end of the stick because they were taught this one little piece of it is all that it is. And if you can expand, now your need will actually be able to get met because it's a co-creation, playful, intimate space that you are creating, not this thing that you are getting from somebody else. And when you think it's a thing you're getting from somebody else, when you don't feel playfully chosen, connected pleasure, you will turn to that other person and be like, you should be doing what I say. You should be giving me sex. And the other person will probably go, okay, well, you're pretty confident about that. Maybe I am the one that's wrong. Maybe I am the broken one. Maybe I can just say yes to this. So hearing that version of sex, how did you experience it within an abusive relationship in an abusive context to help people figure out what kind of relationship they're in at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. My ex didn't do any of that surrounding sex with the love or connection or the pleasure or the playfulness. And it gave me a very strange idea of what sex should be because I was with him for the entirety of my 20s and he was my first kind of primary partner. And it gave me this idea that sex was very much a need that men had that women were supposed to fulfill. And this whole idea of you're supposed to, me being the female half, receive pleasure as well and enjoy it as well and feel playful and loved, I had no idea about until long after I was away from the relationship. And in so many contexts, it was actually about the opposite. It wasn't about love and playfulness, it was about domination and control. Sex became just another way that he was able to exert his power over me and control me and get me to do what he wanted to do. And I want to talk a little bit about something that might be a little sensitive. Um, Within a relationship, even within a marriage, you can experience. So, marital is when you say no to your partner and they continue anyway. And just because you are married, just because you're in a long term relationship, does not mean you have to do what they would like you to do at any point. Consent and sex should always be a mutual thing, a mutually agreed upon agreement. And one time in particular, I will say that I didn't realize that I was experiencing marital until almost the very end of the marriage. And I'll tell you the story that made me realize what was going on was not right. My dad had a stroke in January of 23, and my ex and I went across the state to see him in the hospital. We stayed in a hotel that night, and I was not doing great. I just saw my father go through a stroke. I was emotionally unwell. And my ex tried to initiate sex. And I said, please don't. I just watched my dad go through a stroke. I'm not feeling up to that. And he didn't acknowledge the no, but he also didn't stop. He continued touching and kissing and trying to get things to move forward. And already being with him for over 10 years, I knew I had a choice to make. I could either say no more forcefully, get up, move, prevent him from doing anything else, and face the consequences of that, which could be up to and including him leaving me there and driving all the way home across the state, which he had done on other occasions. Or I could let him continue. And I let him continue. And I remember feeling just sick, just nauseous the entire time, and so used and so sad. And then he finished and went to bed. And not to be dramatic, but I literally cried myself to sleep.
Yeah, of course you did.
And that's the moment where I realized that what was happening was not okay. I was still far, far away from being able to point at the toilet paper regulation and say that was abuse. But that moment where he forced me to go through with a sexual act after I just watched my father go through a stroke was when I really started to question whether or not what I was experiencing was normal.
I'm so sorry. That sucks. That really sucks. Thank you for sharing that story. It's gotta suck to share it too. Um, I'm glad you realized, and I hope that other people can hear the story and be like, "Oh, my husband would do the same thing. My boyfriend would do the same thing. My partner would do the same thing." And maybe not have to wait till they actually do it. I hope so. Ugh. There's this line by Terry Pratchett: "You can never change the past, but you can make the present a past worth looking back on." What happens is once you've been in it for so long, there's this fear that the time's wasted, or that maybe it's a bad, like, maybe I can get somebody else to improve. Maybe I can fix this situation. And there's this fear of all the hard that's going to come with disentangling and all the hard that's going to come with leaving. And that line sticks out to me. Like, you can't change the past, but you can make the present a past worth looking back on. Meaning, you can either do the hard thing of staying or you can do the hard thing of leaving. And you can look back and be like, I stayed, or you can look back and be like, I left. And where do you want to be in 5 years from now, looking back, you know? That's my question for the abused person who's probably realizing in real time right now that they are being abused, which is intense. And that's a scary thing to accept too.
Yeah, that's a really hard moment to go through. I had my moment when I was on a walk. That morning, he got a new job and he was traveling a lot for work. And that morning, I saw 11:11 on the clock. And I made a wish, which I just do generally. It's a nice check as to where my focus and my sort of desire is at. But that morning, my wish was that I had the courage to leave him, which had never happened before. And then later that day, I went on a walk and my mind kind of demanded I confront that moment. And on that walk, I realized that if I was hearing even a third of the stories from my best friend rather than having experienced them myself with my ex, I would no question say he was abusive and she needed to get out for her own safety. And that was a really hard moment. I literally tried to run away. Like, I was walking and then I tried to outrun the moment. Didn't work. And then I cried on the side of the trail, which was fine because no one else was out there. But it really does feel like something you have to escape from. And I would urge anyone who is going through that moment right now on a YouTube video, or just whenever the moment hits you, I won't say lean into it because it is an intense feeling, but don't don't run away from it forever. There's going to be a time eventually when you have to accept what's happening and you have to make a choice. And that doesn't mean you have to leave right away. It took me 8 months of planning to get out from when I went on that walk and actually moved out. 8 months. You don't have to do anything right away. You just have to accept that moment.
That is a small step in the right direction. It's not like a cold turkey plunge. And when you love somebody like I loved that guy and like you were with him for so long.
I loved him. And you're right. I don't hate him. I still don't hate him, even after everything.
Because you see it doesn't come from, and this is why I want to say to abusers, like we paint them with such, it's a really aggressive word and we paint them with such an aggressive brush, but they really are people who are doing whatever the painful thing is because that's the way they know to get connection. Like your dad's stroke is a prime example. That's a moment where he would have felt like I've lost attention and connection from you. How do I get it back? Control. I'm going to use the best control I know how. That is such a lonely way to live. He also, then the person I'm talking about, didn't get to ever experience true connection and acceptance and love because no matter how hard we tried to give it to them, no matter how hard anyone else tried to give it to them, they cannot receive love beyond the degree they've given it to themselves. They can't receive acceptance beyond the degree they've given it to themselves. Recognizing those two things is one, I can't convince that person to stop using control as a way to get connection. And two, the way I get loved in this life matters too. I also have one life. And the way that I spend my years with a partner also matters. I needed to know those two things. If you're listening, you're the abuser. If you're listening, I hope you know that this is not blaming you or hating you, or it's telling you that no matter how hard you try to get the other person's to meet your needs, they can't. It's a cup with a hole in it. And when your partner fills you up, you think, oh, amazing, finally. But then it runs empty again. And because they are the ones who made you feel better for the 6 seconds, you go, it must be you. You need to pour into me more often. You need to pour into me different. You need to pour into me better. You need to pour. And you don't realize there's a damn hole in your cup. And the only way to heal that is to get to work healing it. What part of me did I reject and need to accept from my past? Like doing parts work or EMDR or whatever therapy you need to do. But it starts with the moment of acceptance you had on your walk. That's the same moment of acceptance from an abuser going, oh, I'm spending so much effort trying to change you. And all of us need to spend 0 effort trying to change somebody else and 100% effort trying to heal ourselves. Not even change ourselves, heal ourselves, hold ourselves, accept ourselves. And when we notice, oh, I'm trying to control you, which you and I both did in the reverse on those situations, we were also trying to. Oh, well, then I must have something unhealed in me. If I have trying to control you, then there's something in me that needs to be healed and loved. If we can shift to that, then I hope that helps.
I really liked what you were saying about the very lonely way to live and a very, very limited view of love. And that's something I actually think about with my ex all of the time. Especially now, after I left, I worried about him because at that point I could kind of see that he was never going to be able to have the kind of connection or experience or relationship that didn't include that kind of control. And therefore, he was never going to experience what it's like to be truly loved and connected to someone. And it's something I still think about. I hope that he's doing well. I doubt it, but I hate that he's experiencing life that way. And I hope anyone who's listening, especially if you think you're in an abusive situation and are the abuser, can take a moment to realize that while the control and the tactics that you use might be getting you what you think you need in the short term, they're really limiting how you're going to be able to live your life and the kind of happiness you're going to have in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. That sentence is really strong too. The lonely life. I think that's how we end up in a situation. Like I felt like I can't leave. I'm the only one he's got. He's got nothing else.
Yeah. And he said that all the time too. At least mine did. I'm sure yours did.
Mine did. Yeah. So it was, yeah. I'm the only thing he's got. And then slowly It felt like he was the only thing you got, which, you know, is deliberate. That's part of the whole process. But I hope this helps. I hope this helps somebody out there listening to this and learning. And okay, beautiful. If you were watching us now, we're doing this because we realized in the work that we do, we get the very unique opportunity to look into a dangerous house and watch people hurting each other and people getting hurt. They lock eyes with us. They look at us, and we have the opportunity to point them to the door. And we can't open the door for them, but we can show them that it's there, and we can show them that there's somebody on the other side. We're out here. There are people out here. So that's the point of this video, is to help you as a viewer figure out, okay, am I one of those people in a dangerous house? And how do I get to the door if I am? And this is for not just the person who thinks maybe I'm getting abused or maybe something is toxic and wrong here. It's also for the person who's like, wait, am I being abusive? Am I toxic here? It's for whoever's in that dynamic. No one is a monster in that situation. Everyone is hurting in one way or another. And we really acknowledge that. And that is the point of this video. If you're Christian or Mormon and your partner is saying, submit to me, that is a twisting of the scripture. And if you want to know what I mean by that, I making a follow-up video to this linked in the description. So go there for that.